Guys, January 15th is around the corner. For all you truck drivers out there are reading so many articles on what's happening in our industry, what's happening to cross-border drivers, and the mandate vaccine that's coming into play on January 15th. So let me just give you a little bit of background. If you are a cross-border driver, if you're a Canadian driver going into the US, you're going to need to be vaccinated as of January 15th, or you will not have entry into the US. But have you ever thought about, the articles that I've read, I hear a lot of stuff about 10% of drivers are walking away, 20% of drivers walking away. What are the actual numbers? So what I've done in this video, I've actually approached about 10 different trucking companies to ask them for their stats, real stats. So I'm going to, in this video, talk about our stats, and I'm going to talk about 4 or 5 other trucking companies with their stats on actual truck drivers. So how much percent of their fleet is going to be walking away from the industry, or what are these drivers going to do? So stay with me in this video. At the end of the video, I will talk about options of what to do if you are not vaccinated. What in the world are you supposed to do if you're a cross-border driver? But first, let's get into the stats. Let's talk about these trucking companies. So I'll introduce them one by one. ET Transport will be one of them, but let's talk to other trucking companies. These are either the presidents, the CEOs of these companies that gave me their feedback and data and allowed me to share their information with you guys. So the first company that I've talked to is Trans Am Carriers. They're a carrier here in the GTA. Approximately, they run about 125 power units. So here is the email. I've blocked off a lot of some information, but the most important information is there. Approximately what percent of your fleet is not vaccinated? And the answer to that question is 10%. How many cross-border drivers are you going to be losing, or you're going to need to shuffle within your organization? So what they're doing is they're reshuffling the drivers that are not vaccinated and putting them into a inter-Canada role. So not cross-border, they're going to be doing Canada-only positions. Now, luckily for the drivers working for this company, they are able to give them the ability to work within Canada. Most companies that I've talked to, and you'll see throughout this video, they don't have this option. So luckily for the carriers at Trans Am, that they're able to give them roles within Canada and not lose these drivers. The drivers that will not get vaccinated, what are their plans? Are they leaving the industry? So a lot of the articles that I'm reading, they're talking about so many drivers leaving the industry. Well, is it really true? Because I've asked these companies all to comment on that. So from the 10% or the 10 drivers that are not vaccinated, the answer is that 2 have left the industry. So here you go. So our first company, the actual stat is 2% have walked away from the industry. Now let's get into another company. So the second company is Mackenzie Transportation out of Whitby, Ontario. So I sent them the exact same email. I talked to them on the phone and I've asked about their stats. So Mackenzie Transportation out of Whitby, Ontario, their numbers came back at 5% are not vaccinated. So I don't know the size of this fleet. What I do know is that 5% of their drivers are not vaccinated, and we'll just leave it at that. So company number 3 that I've talked to is Pentagon Logistics out of Mississauga, Ontario. So they run a fleet of about 35 trucks, and in his email back to me, they're currently experiencing that 25% of their fleet is not vaccinated. What in the world are you supposed to do in this situation? I have absolutely no idea. So let's go into another company called Westway Group Canada Inc., based out of Concord, Ontario. So approximately what percent of their fleet is not vaccinated? And the response to that is 10%. So they run about a fleet of 45 power units. 10% of their drivers are not vaccinated. What are they planning on doing? The unvaccinated drivers, the drivers are looking for new Canada-only positions. And here's another company, Seafood Express out of Charlottetown, PEI. So they're running about 75 drivers, and they have 4 that are not vaxxed right now. What are they going to be doing? Well, a couple of them are going to be walking away from the industry, and then the other 2 are most likely going to be looking for local positions or Canada-only positions. So there you go. So here, last fleet I'm going to talk about is our own fleet. So here, ET Transport, we had in November, 4% of our drivers were not vaxxed out of 100. So you can do the math, it's 4 out of 100 that were not vaccinated. As we approached closer to the deadline, 3 out of the 4, actually 4 out of the 4, went and got their first and second shot. Today in our fleet, we have 1 driver that has gotten his first shot, and he's had a reaction to that first shot. So he's pending, but the other 3 drivers have gotten both of their shots. So we're sitting at 1% right now that's not vaccinated, and we are hoping that the US is going to change their mandate that Canadian drivers will be able to go into the US without being vaccinated. I mean, if you think about it, really, I mean, these truck drivers have been on the front line since the beginning of this pandemic. It's been 2 years that they've been sacrificing themselves and going cross-border and putting themselves at risk out there while everybody was home, everybody was in lockdowns. These truck drivers were the ones delivering food, delivering everything that we see. I mean, in the stores, in the grocery stores, all the commodities. I mean, they've been on the front lines delivering nonstop. They are the reason. Where were you guys 2 years ago? Where were we 2.5 years ago when the pandemic just happened? Nobody thought of, putting these restrictions on truck drivers, especially cross-border drivers. I mean, what's going to happen in the US? What's going to happen in Canada? I read all these articles about 20% that are going to walk away. So I'd actually like to give you more accurate numbers, okay? Based on these trucking companies and our own trucking company, the actual numbers sit around 4 to 5%, because as we approach the deadline, more and more drivers are being forced really to get the jab, because what are they going to do? They're not going to work. They're going to convert into Canada only positions. But I'd like to take a minute to talk about what are your options if you do not want to get vaccinated and you are a cross-border driver. So let's talk about company drivers first. You guys have it the easiest because you can basically just tell your company that, as of January 15th, I'm sure they know already that you're no longer able to go into the US. So that company has 2 options. It's convert you into a Canada only position. Now you have to understand how many drivers right now are going to be going into a Canada only position, right? There's going to be hundreds, if not thousands of drivers. There's going to be thousands, if not tens of thousands of drivers that are going to be seeking a Canada only position. What does that mean for you guys? That your rates are going to go down. Why? Because if before drivers were getting paid 60, 65 cents per mile, a Canada only position, I'm sure is going to be paying around 50 or 55 cents per mile. What does this mean for the cross-border drivers that are vaccinated? Well, guess what? Now you're a little bit more in demand, okay? I don't know if you guys noticed, but I've noticed the amount of Facebook trucking jobs that are popping up on my feed is unreal, okay? Every third or fourth, as I scroll on my Facebook, every third or fourth thing that I see is a position for is a cross-border position for trucking. Okay, so the demand is only going to get more and more, and the rates are going to start climbing slowly. So company drivers, okay, if you're in the situation that you are not vaccinated, option number 1 is you ask your company if they can convert you into a Canada only position. Option number 2 is you're most likely going to be looking for another position somewhere else that's going to allow you to work within Canada. So either cross-Canada position or a local driver here in the GTA or wherever you are. So there you go. I've talked about company drivers and what you guys can do. Owner-operators, honestly, I feel for you, and I feel like you're in a horrible situation that you've been put into. Here you are plated with a company, whether you're on a lease program, whether you are on you're an owner operator working for a fleet, and if you are not vaccinated, most likely the company that you're working for is not going to give you a Canada only position as an owner operator. So what are your options? I mean, to find right now a Canada only owner operator position, I mean, I know for myself, I would not recruit a Canada only owner operator just because the times are so unstable and nobody knows what to expect over the next couple of weeks. So what in the world are you guys supposed to do? I feel for a lot of companies that I've talked to. I feel for them. What in the world are we, as running fleets of 100, 150 power units? What are fleets of 300, 400 power units? I mean, if 10% of their operation is not vaxxed, we're talking about 400 trucks. 10% of that is 40 trucks. That's 40 truck vacancies that they have, of trucks that are just lined up, piling up inside their parking lot. So I am very hopeful. I'm hoping that, I think that we all have the right whether to take the jab or not to take a jab. I feel like truck drivers might just need a little bit more time to make sure that, whatever their fears are, to educate them a little bit more on what their fears are. Whether you want the jab or you don't want the jab, you should not be forced into it, and you should not lose your job over it, especially if you are the breadwinner of the family, your family depends on you. So thank you all to the subscribers, and definitely thank you for the 6 companies that participated in this and got back to me with their information. So a special thank you to Trans Am Carriers, Mackenzie Transportation, Pentagon Logistics, Westway Group Canada Inc., ET Transport, and Seafood Express Transportation. So I'm Ronen. I hope you enjoyed this video. The least you could do is give it a thumbs up for all the work that I've done and all of the research that I've done on this. Give it a thumbs up, put a comment down below, and I will respond. I'm Ronen, Ronen, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.